So it was either watching my wife make Christmas cookies or come down here and do a video. You guess which one I chose. Hey everybody, my name is Paul, W1VLF, and welcome to I was going to say the lab, but I'm in my relaxation chair here. Got my coffee over there, my Vice armrest over here, my gratuitous QSL card. And speaking of Christmas cookies, look at this. This is a damn shame. These are totally bald oranges. My wife scrapes the outside off of them and puts them into cookies. So I don't know. And this is just a start. There's a bag of 3 of them here. Well, there's actually a bag of 2 there now. But anyway, there's going to be lemons to go with these too, because she makes all sorts of stuff. Anyway, I thought I might try something a little bit different here tonight. First, maybe center myself up in the camera. And that is, I was looking through some of my photographs that I've taken over the years, and it's a real shame that we didn't have digital cameras back. I mean, they weren't as ubiquitous as they are now back 20 years ago, because I have lots of pictures that of projects that I had fun with, and I only either have a few photographs or not many at all. So I thought maybe I would just do a quick video. This has nothing to do with loops. It does have something to do with antennas, and it does have something to do with HF mobile. So maybe somebody will find something interesting here. I used to drive 60 miles each way to work. So that's about an hour and a half, and used to get on 75 meters, 40 meters, not much above that, but 75 and 40 were my 2 favorite bands for driving back and forth to work. And I started off with some sort of base-loaded 8-foot whip, and I put a big coil on the bottom and got it resonated, you know, and matched it, and it worked out okay. I mean, not great, but it worked out. So then I found out about this thing called, to give you an idea, this is a High Sierra made the screwdriver antenna. So for a long time I ran a screwdriver antenna on HF mobile, and it was a lot of fun. You know, I had a great time. But it never seemed like it was quite good enough. So the way I look at my car is, or did my car at that point in time, was it was a mobile antenna platform. Yes, I got back and forth to work. So with that in mind, I needed something that got good mileage. I got something that made almost no RF noise whatsoever. So I had a diesel Passat and a diesel Jetta. Around here, the tallest part of your vehicle can be 13 foot 6 inches. I don't know what that is in meters, but and it wasn't quite long enough. And especially here in the Northeast, where you have a lot of low-hanging trees, and you know you're going through and your antenna's whacking, banging off the trees. So I had to come up with something a little bit better. And the way I did that was I was researching horizontal antennas for HF mobile. And lo and behold, there was a gentleman, Andy Pfeiffer, K1KLO, and he came up with an antenna that he used back in the 1980s. There's some if you look up the Connecticut Shorthorn antenna, it was a antenna that went up off the roof of the vehicle and then forward. And I thought, well, geez, that's interesting, because the vertical has pretty much a low angle of radiation, and I'm only talking to guys who are 300-400 miles out. So why don't I try and build a horizontal? So one of the problems was that with the long vertical and with the screwdriver antenna, you were hitting everything constantly. So I decided, well, let me put a capacitance hat on there, and I ended up having about, I don't know, getting rid of about 1/3 of the loading inductance, and that was really good. And I said, well, now what if I could make the radiator longer? So I said, well, I looked at this article, and I decided to call Andy up. I had spoken to him on the phone a couple times this is probably in the 90s, and he's long since passed on, rest his soul. But I emailed him a while back, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and said, Andy, do you mind if I make write a little article about this antenna and call it the new Connecticut Longhorn? And that's when his daughter answered me and said that he had passed on, but she thought that in his name he would really like to know about that. So anyway, this series, I'm not sure what I'm going to call it, but tonight will be about the new Connecticut Longhorn. We'll head over to the computer. And I'll show you some of the photographs. And the reason I'm doing this is just because these are experiments that I did that I can't do it here and for you. I can't do anything like I'm doing with the loops and things. They're experiments that I did years ago, and I have some photographs. So we'll go over there. We'll look at the photographs. I'll explain this antenna. I think that the total length of the antenna was around 18 feet. Obviously, you can't go 18 feet straight up, but it went 5 feet up off the trunk lid, and then another, I guess, 12 or 13 feet forward, and there was a top hat on it, and it absolutely worked fabulous. So, a question for you guys. I'm trying to come up with an idea here as to what to name these. I'd like to do some of these, if anybody shows any interest, I'd like to do some of these projects that I only have photographs of, and make them fairly short. So I'm thinking of, well, I'm not thinking of anything. I'm trying to come up with a name, and if you guys have any suggestions, or if you think this is a horrible idea, don't do it, because there's a lot of stuff. There's some point-to-point laser stuff. There's some 800 LED arrays that I made and did bounced audio signals or infrared signals off a cloud on non-line of sight paths. There's some really miniature photography where I did with lenses showing the surface texture of a grain of salt. There's just so many, and I thought, well, maybe somebody will find an interest in it. Anyway, I'm going to head over there, and I'll bring up some pictures, talk about it a little bit. Oh, the other thing, what if I forgot to tell you when I get over to the computer, this antenna, 18 feet long, is held onto the car with not a single screw. When I was working in a LED factory in the lab, I found out about this material called Vhb. It's made by 3M. And this stuff was incredible. It's called very high bond. And you can stick two surfaces together with a couple of square inches of this stuff. It's foamy. It's like a very thick tape, and I guarantee you will not be able to pull it apart with your bare hands. If you take two pieces of angle bracket like this and stick them together, and you do the process that you're supposed to do, which is hold them together for like 20 seconds under pressure so everything bonds. The surfaces are clean. You just won't believe it. So when you look at these pictures, just remember that everything that you see here, and I'll try to point them out with my mouse, was held on by Vhb. And I've gone well over 80 miles an hour with this antenna on there, and it never bothered me even for a minute because the stuff is so strong. So without further ado, and maybe one last sip of coffee, I'm going to take myself and my Moxie shirt over to the computer and talk over some slides and see how many people unsubscribe after this video. W1VLF, catch you in a second. Okay, so we're over at the computer now. First slide, number one here, is the Vhb Slide from 3M. Now, 3M is not sponsoring me, and I'm pretty darn sure that 3M doesn't even know that I exist. But when I worked in the lab at the LED factory, we use this in a lot of prototypes. This Vhb is what it's called. And you could do a search on eBay and find all sorts of sizes, thicknesses, strip lengths, squares, whatever you need. But this stuff is, I'm not kidding you, it's absolutely incredible. I'll show you where I used it to hold the antenna on the mobile. So slide 2. Well, Yeah, you got slide. It looks like I'm getting ready to go to work there. In this slide, we have just a pole sticking on the back of the Jetta. It's 6-meter antenna. That's about as high as I could get away with any antenna on driving through the back roads in Connecticut here. So, but that was the first kind of evolution of a mount. And if you look right here, you can see there's an SO234 barrel that goes into the trunk, and that allows me to try antennas, different antennas with coaxes and everything without having the wire to go underneath the trunk. And have water come in or something. But it basically, like I said, I looked at the vehicle as a antenna experimentation platform. So here's that same antenna, and here's how it's attached. If you look here, this is a piece of 2-inch by 2-inch aluminum angle. And there is a strip that's maybe an 1.5 inches wide underneath here. You can barely see it here, the black, which is the VHB. When I got rid of this car, I had to take those off, and I had to use 2 pairs of channel locks holding it right here, my largest channel locks, and literally, use all my strength to pull that off, and then it cleaned up. So just to give you an idea of how strong that stuff was, or is. Here's the actual HF antenna for 80 meters. If you got, I don't know if you can really see this. There'll be a better picture of it up next one. This was just kind of a test to see if it was feasible to do it. This is 2-inch square tubing, and these are gigantic L brackets, and they're VHB down to the rear trunk lid of the car. To make the 90-degree corner, I have some square plates up here. And this being a square tube, and the old High Sierra screwdriver antenna was round, so I had to machine up a little interface over here. And this right here, this is just a piece of pipe holding it up to get an idea of when it was level and just how far I could go with it. So we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, now here's that close-up view of the L brackets, and these are all VHB'd on too, right? So these aren't going. This was not going anywhere. These are the same kind of brackets, that 90-degree bracket with some PVC. I swear to God, people say dog's a man's best friend. Well, if that's true, PVC pipe is man's second best friend. And a couple of PVC T's up here that were cut in half, so the pipe, this horizontal radiator, could rest on top of there. Here is the rest of the screwdriver antenna, and I think that was like a 1/2-inch rod that came out the top. Again, this was a while ago, so I don't really remember all the dimensions. And a Cloverleaf Top Hat. That, I'll tell you what was amazing, was this Cloverleaf Top Hat allowed you to drop about 20 or 25% of the inductor here, to pull that back in and get it out of the circuit. So it was quite effective. Now, how do you work on something like this? Well, you can't really see in these pictures, but there are 2 bolts here that hold this vertical mast to the L brackets. And you take out the top bolt and you leave the bottom bolt in, and then there was a pin here and a pin here. Crumbs. Sorry about that, folks. There was a pin here and a pin here that got pulled out, and yes. And then the whole antenna would tilt backwards over towards the ground, so you could work on any part of it. You'd put a little chair or something out here, just like a tilting over tower. So it was quite easy to work on. Getting it started was a little difficult, but once you got it started and it was leaning back this way, then you'd put it on a chair here and you could work on all the different parts of it without any problem at all. Let's see. Oh, so right while I'm in the middle of working on this, my wife says, I got to go to the grocery store. Can you hang the towels out for me? And now, if you don't look at this picture and figure out what's going on here, this is how a ham radio operator would hang out the towels. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Close-up look view of the top hat here, and a close-up of this is the old coil, and this was a really old antenna. But when you want to adjust it to resonance, it would come out of the tube this way and then go back in again. Now this would resonate all the way down to 3 megahertz, and you lost everything above, I think 10 megahertz. But it was worthwhile because it really worked well. What I also wanted to show was I could have made this longer. This was about 5 feet. Oh, the other thing is, if you mount the antenna down low here like this, that meant that a good portion of it was sort of shielded by the car or had capacitance to the vehicle body, and I didn't really want that, so that's why I put it up here. So the result is that this gives me some elevation above the ground, about a 5-foot vertical or so. I think it was about 5 feet, and then about 12 or 13 feet going forward. And this worked really well. The problem I had was, and I would have gone longer. I would have extended it, clear out past the front of the vehicle with another pole here holding it, but because I don't really care. Like I said, this was an experimental platform. But the problem was I had it all set to go. If you wanted to open the trunk, you could, by the way. You just open the trunk and you pull out those 2 pins and the whole antenna. I'll go back to that picture. Where is it? It's this way. Pull out these 2 pins, open the trunk, and the whole antenna, like this end, would tilt down towards the ground. It wasn't really that hard. Actually, what you could do is go here and grab a hold of these and pull the antenna forward and the trunk would come up. Of course, I did all the normal stuff you would do in a mobile operation, ground the tailpipe, bond all the doors and everything. But what really spelled the end of this was I had the trunk lid open and was all finished with the antenna system, and I left a small bolt right here. Maybe it was a 1-inch long bolt. And when I slammed the trunk lid shut, that bolt dug into the corner of this window and it just blew it out. It just turned it into the safety glass pellets that you see. So anyway, just wanted to throw some of these pictures up and show you some of this stuff. Let me know if you found anything at all interesting here, if you would be interested in seeing more of these projects and not sort of real-time stuff. 73 from W1VLF here at the computer. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you can.